The courtroom freezes the very instant Briana rises to her feet, her hands trembling violently as she clutches a worn, faded blue journal against her chest, a little thing so battered it looks as though it has survived storms no one else has witnessed. Not a soul in the room expects what she is about to reveal, least of all Kody, whose face drains of every trace of color the moment she opens to the first brittle page. In a voice barely louder than a whisper, as fragile as a thread pulled too tight, Briana confesses, "There are things about my dad, things I wrote down because I was too frightened to say them out loud." The judge leans forward ever so slightly, Robin tries to stand but her knees buckle, and Kody chokes on his own breath as the journal begins to speak for the frightened girl she once was. It all begins with the soft scrape of Briana's chair sliding back across the polished courtroom floor, a small sound, yet one that slices through the suffocating tension already thick in the air. She avoids the eyes of everyone, not Robin, whose eyes glisten with panic, not Kody, whose jaw tightens so sharply the muscles in his neck twitch, not Christine or Yanel, who share a silent glance that suggests something far heavier than a simple custody dispute is about to unfold. Briana walks towards the witness stand as if approaching the edge of a cliff she has spent years pretending did not exist, her breathing shallow, her steps stiff with dread. The judge shifts forward, the energy in the room turning electric, unpredictable, suddenly more confession than legal proceeding. She sits, trembling, as the bailiff steps forward to swear her in, but her hands shake so violently she almost drops the little journal that has carried her childhood fears. Kody shoots to his feet, blurting, "Your Honor, she doesn't need to do this," but Robin yanks at his arm, hissing, "Sit down," though even her voice trembles with a fracture she can no longer hide. And in that moment, everyone understands, this is not testimony, it is detonation. Briana raises her hand, is sworn in, and finally opens the journal, its pages cramped with writing so small, so desperate, it looks as though she was trying to hide her own thoughts from herself. Clearing her throat, she begins, "When I was 14, I started writing because I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't want to tell Mum because she would panic, and I didn't want to tell Dad because he always told us not to make things bigger than they were." Kody flinches as if struck. She reads the first entry. "Dad stopped showering again. He said water made him feel trapped, but he yelled at us to keep our rooms spotless." Robin gasps, a hand flying to her mouth. Kody stares down at the table as though attempting to disappear inside it. Briana continues, unwavering, "He hasn't brushed his teeth in a week, maybe longer. He told me toothpaste is full of chemicals that make people dumber." Quiet gasps ripple through the gallery. Christine exchanges a horrified look with Yanel. The judge's face tightens as concern replaces neutrality. "She misunderstood," Robin whispers urgently, but Briana finally lifts her head and replies, voice firmer now, "No. I didn't misunderstand. I lived it." A flicker of long-buried courage sparks inside her. Kody lifts his head sharply, fury in his eyes, but she refuses to flinch. She turns the page. "Dad said he doesn't need deodorant because real men sweat out toxins. But sometimes we couldn't even ride in the car with him. I wrote this the day Aurora cried because the smell made her nauseous." The judge exhales sharply. Robin whispers, "She promised me she wouldn't bring this up," as Christine mutters, "Maybe she's tired of being quiet," and Yanel nods in tense agreement. Briana swallows and keeps reading, now shaking with held-back tears instead of fear. "He stayed up until 3 in the morning again. He was pacing outside my door. I pretended to sleep. He muttered about cameras, enemies, us being ungrateful. He didn't know I heard. I always heard." Another collective gasp. Kody stands abruptly, shouting, "Enough, this is taken out of," but the judge snaps, "Sit down, Mr. Brown," and he sinks back into his chair, humiliated. Briana wipes her cheeks. "I'm not trying to attack anyone. I wrote these things because I didn't know what was normal anymore, and the older I got, the more I realized none of it was." Robin finally breaks, crying silently as the courtroom shifts from shock to an aching understanding. This is not vengeance, this is trauma. But Briana has more. She flips to a page written in red ink. Her voice drops. "This was the night everything changed, the night I stopped seeing him as just my dad." The room stiffens. She reads, "I heard a noise in the hallway. Dad was standing in the dark, sweating. He smelled so bad my eyes watered. He was scratching his arms over and over, mumbling someone was trying to take us away. He didn't see me. I hid. I wrote this shaking. I still feel that fear. Silence grips the room. Kody whispers, broken, Bri, why would you say that? And she answers, because no one protected us. And someone has to tell the truth. The judge asks if more entries are relevant. Briana hesitates, then nods slowly. Robin grips the table, white-knuckled. The judge instructs her to open the next entry. Briana's breath stutters as she opens a soft, smudged page. Kody whispers, terrified, no. The lights overhead seem colder, harsher. Briana begins, I wrote this when I was 15. The night everything felt wrong. She reads, Mum was crying in the bathroom again. Dad slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. He yelled about the show ruining our lives, cameras poisoning him, lights controlling him. He smelled like he hadn't showered in days. The judge stiffens. Kody mutters, this is exaggerated, kids misinterpret, but the judge silences him sharply. Briana continues, voice trembling, I went downstairs because I heard noises. Dad was on the kitchen floor. In the dark. Shirt off. Swinging a torch like he was searching for something. He whispered, they're hiding from me. I know they're hiding from me. Gasps break through the gallery. Robin cries silently behind her hands. Kody shakes his head violently, but the judge stops him again. Briana flips the page. Then he looked at me. His eyes didn't look like Dad's. They were wild. He grabbed my wrist and asked if I was one of the people trying to mess with him. I said no. He didn't let go. I ran upstairs and locked my door. I cried until sunrise. Christine presses a hand to her chest. Yanel looks down, jaw clenched. Even the bailiff shifts uncomfortably. Briana is no longer a frightened daughter, she is a survivor. Suddenly Robin stands, sobbing, that's enough. She didn't understand, but the judge threatens to have her removed, forcing her back into her seat, shaking. Briana turns to another page, one stained with dried tears. I didn't want to read this one, she whispers, but it's part of the truth. She reads, Dad told us cameras watch us even when production isn't here. He said neighbors record us. He said the bathroom steam sends signals. Aurora cried. I pretended I wasn't scared. Robin breaks again. Christine whispers, oh my God. The judge looks shaken for the first time. Kody bows his head as his facade cracks. Briana finally reaches a page written with frantic strokes, almost illegible. Her hands tremble. This is the entry I've been terrified to show anyone, she whispers. Robin goes still. Kody looks hollow. Briana's voice softens until the entire courtroom leans forward. Mum told Dad to shower before Trulis' birthday. He screamed. He threw the towel. He punched the wall. He smashed a chair. He said he didn't need to be clean for people who didn't appreciate him. He said his sweat was proof of real work. He told me if I loved him, I'd defend him. I wrote this because I knew that if he didn't change, one day he'd break something worse than a chair. The courtroom becomes utterly still, as though the air itself has stopped moving. The judge finally asks why she waited until now. Briana closes the journal with a trembling breath. I waited because I didn't understand how bad it was. But now, with the custody fights, the trust issues, the money, the anger, I realized Dad isn't the only one who needs to face the truth. I do too. I was scared of him for years, and hiding it only let him get worse. Kody whispers, Bri, please, but she lifts her head, steady now. She gently places the journal on the stand as though laying down a burden she has carried for half her life, and says, the next entry is the worst one. And I haven't shown it to anyone. Not even Mum. Robin's breath catches. Christine leans forward. Yanel grips the bench. And Kody's face goes pale, drained, hollow, terrified as the courtroom braces for the truth that has been waiting to erupt for years. The judge's tone softens into a measured, cautious murmur as she folds her hands and says, Miss Brown, whenever you are ready. The entire courtroom seems to shrink around that single sentence, as though the walls themselves are inching closer to witness what is about to unfold. Briana inhales slowly, her fingers trembling as she opens to the final tabbed page of the battered blue journal, and the moment she flips it, the color drains from Kody's face completely. He whispers under his breath, barely audible, "No, not that night. Not that page. Please, don't." His voice fractures on the last word. Briana's fingertips hover over the paper as if the ink itself might burn her, trembling with the weight of history she has avoided touching for years. She draws a sharp breath, the kind that pierces the silence, thin and whistling, like air through a crack in glass, and every eye in the courtroom locks onto her, except Kody, who bows his head as his fists tighten beneath the table, fingernails digging crescents into his palms. Robin's face is ashen, her lips quivering, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes as though the truth itself has risen like a tide she can no longer hold back. Even the judge freezes, hand suspended above a stack of documents as she watches the young girl in front of her brace herself for something catastrophic. I almost didn't write this," Briana begins, her voice a fragile, wavering thread. "I almost destroyed it. I thought that if I forced myself to forget, maybe the memory would disappear." Christine leans forward, brows knitted, sensing the gravity of what is about to emerge. Yanelle shifts in her seat, her fingers gripping her purse so tightly it creaks, bracing herself for a storm she has long suspected but never heard articulated. The air feels unnaturally heavy, thick with dread and anticipation, as though the entire room can feel the weight of the final page before Briana even reads it. With trembling hands, she opens the last entry. The ink is smudged in places, warped by old tears, but the story is unmistakably clear. That night, she reads quietly, the night Dad completely lost himself. It wasn't just shouting. It wasn't just pacing. It was something else. She hesitates, swallowing. He slammed the door so hard the wall shook. I heard things breaking downstairs, plates, drawers, something metal. And then, he came up the stairs. Calling my name. Yelling it. Kody's hands tense even further, his face twisted with a mix of rage, humiliation, and fear fighting for dominance. Robin stifles a sob behind her hands. Briana pauses to steady her breathing, though the tremor remains. I locked myself in my room, she continues, voice cracking. I couldn't breathe. I was too terrified to call for Mum. And then he knocked on my door, hard, shouting that I was disrespecting him, that I needed to face him. The tension stretches so tightly across the room that every small movement seems amplified. Briana takes another breath. I wrote it because I needed someone, anyone, to know. To understand that the fear we lived with wasn't imaginary. That Dad's behavior wasn't normal. It was unpredictable. Controlling. Sometimes, frightening. Kody shakes his head sharply. Briana, that's not how it happened. The judge lifts a hand. Mr. Brown, allow her to finish. Briana turns the page, and her handwriting shrinks until the letters nearly collapse into one another, desperate and panicked. I remember him standing in my doorway, she reads. His arms were trembling. Sweat soaked his shirt. He whispered about cameras watching us, recording us, judging us, measuring our loyalty. I remember the smell that made me gag, made my stomach twist. Robin gasps softly. This isn't true, she's not remembering right, I think she's telling the truth, Christine murmurs, almost to herself. Yanelle nods in silent agreement, her expression fierce with protectiveness. Briana continues, tears gathering but her voice strengthening. I hid under my bed that night. I could hear him walking around the room, mumbling, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just wrote because I had to do something. The courtroom is so silent the air itself seems frozen. Even the bailiffs remain motionless. Bri. I didn't mean, Kody begins. No, Dad, Briana says, cutting him off with unexpected strength. I'm done pretending. I'm done protecting what can't be protected. Robin shakes her head fiercely. This is humiliation, she's humiliating him. Christine turns slightly, whispering harshly, humiliation? No. This is truth. Briana faces the gallery, her eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and courage. Every time I stayed silent, she says, I felt complicit. I felt like I was helping hide something that hurt us. Every time I pretended things were normal, I betrayed myself. Kody looks around desperately, searching for anyone who will rescue him, who will deny her claims, who will restore the illusion he clung to for years. But no one moves. No one speaks. All eyes remain fixed on Briana. She flips another page. Her breath trembles. I wrote about his hygiene, she says softly, because it terrified me. Not the smell, but the unpredictability. The rules he forced on us, but ignored for himself. It felt like he was losing control of something inside him. Robin whispers shakily. She doesn't know what she's saying. Christine's voice slices through the quiet. She knows precisely what she's saying. Briana presses on. I wrote this page when I was 16. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Fear doesn't stay hidden forever. The room tightens around her words. Briana sets the journal down, tears streaming freely, chest rising and falling in heavy breaths. Everyone senses it, the final blow, the truth she has carried like a stone lodged in her throat. Her voice drops into a whisper so fragile the entire room instinctively leans in. The last entry, it's about the night I realized I couldn't stay silent any longer. The night that made me understand Dad wasn't safe to be around. The judge leans forward. Miss Brown, what is in that entry? Briana opens the final tab. The room collectively holds its breath. Kody's hands shake so violently his knuckles crack. Robin gasps, covering her mouth. Christine leans forward, lips parted. Yanel grips her chair so tightly her fingers blanch. Briana begins, voice trembling. I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. She pauses, her breath catching. I've never told anyone. Not Mum. Not my sisters. No one. No, Bri, please, Kody whispers, broken. But the room has already frozen. Briana continues, voice steadier now. I saw the moment Dad lost control. Completely. Utterly. It changed everything. The temperature in the room seems to drop. Christine's face pales. Yanel's whole body stiffens. Briana flips the page. Her handwriting is jagged and frantic. He didn't just yell, she reads. He smashed things. Tore things. Broke furniture. But that wasn't what frightened me most. What terrified me was the look in his eyes. I thought he would hurt someone. I thought, her voice falters. I thought he might hurt me. Kody whispers hoarsely, that's not true, but no one reacts. Briana presses on. I wrote it because I needed to remember. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. That what happened wasn't my fault. Robin jumps to her feet, sobbing. She's twisting everything. Sit down, Mrs. Brown, the judge says firmly. Robin collapses back into her chair. Kody hides his face in his hands. Christine murmurs to Yanel, he can't hide from this anymore. Briana flips to the final paragraph. I couldn't tell anyone, she whispers. I was too afraid. But now I have to, because the truth matters more than the fear. She swallows. Dad lost control of himself. He wasn't the father I thought I knew. He was dangerous. And writing it down was the only way I survived that night. The gallery is utterly silent. Kody lifts his head, his eyes wild, panicked, pleading. Robin sobs uncontrollably. Briana flips the very last page. The words are barely legible. I remember him staring at me, she reads, voice breaking. Sweat dripping down his face. Eyes wide. He didn't see me at first. And when he did, I realized he was gone. Out of control. He could have hurt anyone, me, my siblings, without even realizing. Briana, please, Kody whispers. You don't have to. I do, she interrupts. Because this is the truth. And you have to face it. Robin wails, a raw sound that cuts through the tension. Kody's shoulders shake as he lowers his head again. Christine whispers, horrified, this is worse than any of us imagined. Yanel's eyes flash with restrained fury. Briana turns to the last line she ever wrote in the journal. I prayed someone would understand, she whispers. I prayed someone would see Dad for who he had become. The room hangs in suspended silence. The judge leans forward. Miss Brown, please read it. Briana inhales shakily. Dad, that night I saw the line between love and fear disappear. A shiver runs through the room. And it scared me more than anything else in the world. Silence. Utter, suffocating silence. Briana closes the journal slowly, her fingers lingering on the battered cover before releasing it like a burden finally set down. That is everything, she whispers. Now everyone knows. And nothing will ever be the same. The judge exhales, heavy with the weight of everything she has just heard. Mr. Brown, how do you respond? Kody lifts his head, eyes unfocused, breath shaking. He chokes on the words. No one interrupts. The entire courtroom watches him. Even Robin is speechless. And then, in the most shocking moment of the trial, Kody's knees buckle beneath him. He collapses forward onto the table, forehead striking the polished surface, hands trembling uncontrollably as the room erupts into absolute chaos around him. The journal lay beside him, slightly open, its pages fluttering as though even the paper itself trembled with fear, as if the truth within it had begun to breathe at last. Robin's chair screeched sharply against the polished courtroom floor as she sprang forward, panic overwhelming every scrap of composure she had left. Kody, look at me, she cried, her voice cracking under the weight of dread. Briana sat back in her seat, hands clasped tightly in her lap, her breathing controlled yet heavy, her eyes fixed on her father as he finally buckled beneath the strain of decades of secrets, shadows, and carefully concealed truths. Christine leaned towards Yanel, her whisper tinged with disbelief. I've never seen him like this. Not even during the worst family rows. The judge, face stern and unsmiling, rose abruptly and slammed her gavel down so hard it echoed like a gunshot. Order. Bailiffs. Mr. Brown must be stabilized before we proceed. Everyone remain seated. Two officers approached cautiously, as though nearing a wounded animal ready to lash out. Kody's shoulders shook violently. He refused to meet anyone's eyes, staring instead at the trembling journal as if it had betrayed him. Robin hovered beside him, whispering frantically, "It's all right. Just breathe. Please breathe." Briana inhaled deeply. This was the moment she had dreaded and anticipated in equal measure, the culmination of years spent living in fear, of silence thick enough to suffocate her, and of secrets far too heavy for a child to carry. But the moment did not feel triumphant. Watching her father collapse, hearing Robin's desperate cries, feeling the electric tension coating the room, it felt like victory steeped in sorrow. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath, waiting, listening, dreading what might come next. Once Kody was steadied and lowered back into his seat, the judge motioned for everyone to sit. "Miss Brown," she said, her voice firm but not unkind, "you may continue if there is further evidence in your journal relevant to the case." Briana opened the journal once more, turning past pages filled with cramped handwriting, notes on his controlling behaviors, his strange rituals, his fixation on monitoring the family, the fear he created so effortlessly. Her voice shook, but beneath the tremor was a new and hard-won strength. "These pages show patterns," she said, raising her eyes to the judge. "The odd habits, the hygiene issues, the obsession with surveillance, the fear he instilled in us. It's all connected. I wrote it down because no one else would see it. No one else would listen." Robin shook her head violently. "You're lying, Bri. You're twisting everything." Christine stood abruptly, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "She isn't twisting anything. This is her reality. We've all seen the consequences." Yanel leaned forward, whispering fiercely under her breath, "Finally someone's brave enough to say it." Briana turned another page, stopping at one of the entries that made Kody flinch even before she read a word. "The night Dad threw the chair," she began. "I hid in the pantry. I saw the fear in Mum and the others. I knew then that this wasn't normal. And I wrote it all down." Robin gasped, covering her mouth with trembling hands. The gallery murmured, parents whispering behind open palms, others shifting uneasily, some unable to look away, recognizing the shape of abuse even in someone else's story. The atmosphere thickened, the air heavy with disbelief and dread as Briana paused, staring directly at her father. "I wasn't trying to humiliate you," she said quietly. "I wanted someone to see the truth. And now you have no choice." Kody's reply was barely a whisper. I never meant for anyone to know." Robin's sobs intensified, raw and desperate. Christine's hands clasped together tightly. Yanel's eyes glittered with a mixture of anger, relief, and vindication. The judge leaned back in her chair, considering the weight of the moment with grave attention. Briana turned to the entry that had haunted her for years, the one that made even the judge sit straighter. "There's one more," Briana said. "The one I was most afraid to show." The room leaned in collectively, breath held as though the very air was suspended. Even the judge adjusted her glasses, bracing. "No," Kody whispered, his voice breaking. "Not that one. Anything but that." Briana opened the journal, fingers trembling, scanning the page before lifting her gaze to the courtroom. "This is the truth about the night that changed everything." Silence crashed over the room. Robin's hands flew to her mouth. Christine's body leaned forward instinctively, and Yanel gripped her chair as if steadying herself for impact.